My guy, Jamal Trulove, man. Happy to have you back on the platform, man. But for the people that's unfamiliar with you, let the people know who you is.
Yeah, so my name is Jamal Trulove, and I'm from the Bay Area, San Francisco to be exact, Sunnydale Projects. And I'm an actor, writer, director, um, a lot producer, but a lot of people know me for being framed by the San Francisco Police Department under the office of Kamala Harris.
Yes, indeed. So I gotta ask you, Kamala, she lost the election, man. How you feeling, man?
Yeah, she had to take that L. I mean, I feel good. I feel good about it, but I also feel bad about it, to a degree because I see a lot of our community, hurting from it, especially our black community, and I see a lot of divide within our community and a lot of um, blaming going back and forth, within our community. So, it's a bittersweet win for me. Um, Obviously, I knew going into this that I was going to get some backlash in general, but also, I have my reasons, and I have strong reasons, which I hope people are able to show, my trauma's grace of why I didn't want to see Kamala in office. If anybody is, if you're framed for murder and Kamala or whoever is at the helm of the DA office at the time, they're all going to be the enemy in general. And 4 years ago, I gave her in her campaign an opportunity to kind of clear the air with my case and with other cases to where she could have came out and gave it some acknowledgement to where she could have made a mistake and show remorse for what happened to me and and other people and make a real stance. I would have respected her for that, and I think a lot of our community who voted against her or had these strong opinions about her being the top cop of California and being a prosecutor and so forth, would have had a lot more understanding. But she didn't take the accountability, and that's what really flipped on the light switch, not only for me but for a lot of people. And you know her losing, there's a lot of different variables to why she lost ultimately, and I know it doesn't feel good, for a lot of people, and I know it don't feel good for for her as well, because now her career is over. I mean, she won't be running for president again in the next 4 years. She was never a superstar in the party. She and and that's just what it is. But I'm happy, with the results, because for me, I don't have to deal with her being as the president of the United States for the next 4 to potentially 8 years. Just imagine having a, and I watch the news a lot. Like, I didn't go to school for political science, but if I went to school for political science now, I'll already be ahead of the class. I'm really that knowledgeable. I'm not the most knowledgeable, but I know more than the common person knows. And she's just not a star.
So she haven't apologized to you till this day.
Nah, still to this day, she haven't apologized to me. And she had an opportunity to do so, and Charlemagne had an opportunity to help her as well, which he didn't, because they thought it was going to be a negative. When he ended up having her on the podcast live, like a month ago or whatnot, I hit Charlemagne in the DM, and we messaged back and forth. And he also told me 4 years ago that he believed that at minimum she should give an apology or give some acknowledgement of some sort. But the thing about it is, why she won't apologize is because they feel like I got away with murder. When I went to sue the San Francisco Police Department, which I would have added Linda Allen and Kamala in there, but they have qualified immunity to the lawsuit. But when we did the interview, when we did the deposition of Linda Allen, I had my attorneys ask her, as we sit here today, do you believe Jamal Trulove killed Sel Kuka? And she said, yes, we believe Jamal Trulove got away with murder. And they tried me 2 different times, obviously. The first time I lost. I went through my appeal. Kamala Harris vigorously went against my appeal as the Attorney General and tried to keep her record intact, which she lost. And then when I went to my second trial, Linda Allen begged and pleaded George Gascon to have the case again so she could, keep that conviction on her record. And I ended up winning. So when I went to go and sue them, there was no way that they could sit there and say that I was wrongfully convicted or I was innocent, because it would have handed me my case, my civil case. So as we sit here today, you let them tell it, I got away with murder. And then I came up with some bull story about how the police framed me. And then I ended up, winning all this money. And then I went on to be an actor, writer, director, producer, activist, and, and political figure. I mean, what a story at the end of the day. But yeah, no apology, no acknowledgement. And, it's a little bit in me that wish that she did. And that probably would have put me that much more at bay during this campaign. But if you have a story, you should tell it, and tell it at the most important and pivotal time that you can tell it when it comes down to it. And that's all I did, was tell my story. Personally, I don't have nothing against Kamala Harris. Like, when it comes down to her, her political strategies and her as a district attorney and attorney general and even as vice president, she failed. And she was never for, her policies and things of that nature was never for our people. And I just shined a light on it, a lot. So it wasn't so much about, Donald Trump, even in this whole campaign, and me playing my part in the campaign. It wasn't so much about Donald Trump. It was more so about her. Now, I can make an argument for Trump, but I can't make an argument for Kamala. And if I didn't want her to become president and have to watch, one of my, a person who put me through the trauma that I went through, one of the prosecutors, then I had to voice my story and go for the opposing. And I just got good at it, to be honest. And when I look at the United States as a whole, we're not focused. The United States aren't focused on, identity politics. It's way more to it. It's way more complex. But no, she didn't give me no type of apology or anything like that, because in her eyes, I got away with murder.
What do you think went wrong when you seen her lose the election? You personally, what do you believe?
Well, she went wrong in so many different ways. Now, it's not just her going wrong, it's the Democratic Party in general. But we can start with, the Democrats not being able to get Joe Biden out the way early enough to give her 2 years of campaigning. And they tried to scoot her in there way too late into the game. And that was one thing. She didn't have enough time to truly campaign and for her to sell herself the way that, they say that you can sell yourself that much more if you had 2 more years of doing so. But the problem with that was that they had her in the basement for about 4 years not doing anything. Now, what I initially thought that they were educating her and she was studying those whole 4 years, preparing to be the candidate, maybe 1 year out before the election. But that wasn't even the case. They thought that they could just drag Joe Biden across the stage and win the case. But after that, that that debacle of a debate that he had with Donald Trump, it was clear that there was no way that they can do that. So what the last sketch effort was to put Kamala in that position. But the thing about it is people forgot about Kamala over the past 4 years. So she wasn't a star. She didn't do nothing, significant. The new Green Deal that she was the signing component on, was supposed to be a positive, but ended up, raising the country's debt and hurting our economy. And it was a bill that she was a deciding factor on, the Inflation Act, which that was supposed to lower inflation and help Americans and so forth, and it didn't work. So now you have these 2 horrible checks on your resume now, and now you're going in, and their only strategy that they got is to last minute run a campaign based off of identity. Being a woman, 1, a black woman, 2, and then the historic factor of it. Now, when you look at the Democratic Party, out of all the big names, the Barack Obama, Michelle Obama got more clout and more power in the politics than Kamala does. And she's been in it forever. Chuck Schumer, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and a slew of other names that are either they've been president, try to be president, or they're too old to try to become a star. They didn't have a star and to go up against Trump. So again, number 3 was the historic factor. Number 4 was Trump bad, orange man bad, racist, So those are the initial things, right? The second thing is that she didn't know how to do interviews. She wasn't knowledgeable enough to be able to be asked a question and shoot from the hip and be able to answer a question. So they literally had to write a script for her for every time she sat down for an interview. Now, all of these mainstream media outlets, they were pissed at the end of the day because her taking these interviews, which presidents take these interviews all the time, it's been an historic thing to do. Obama did it. Trump constantly does it. Hillary Clinton did it. John McCain did it. Everybody did it. Every president before. But she chose not to be the one who did it. And I don't even think it's her. And to be honest, I think that she was really the fall person for the party, for the failing of the party in general. When you have these historic numbers, of people coming out, voting for who have been sold to us as our oppressors, being the Republican Party, being Donald Trump, which they classified as Hitler and all of these other things, still go out and vote for him, showed a whole lot. And her record as district attorney in San Francisco, as attorney general as well, came back to haunt her. Not only that, the other things that really, hurt her from not winning is that she flip-flopped on everything that she said that she stood on 4 years ago. Now, it just screamed being fake. Now, two huge things I could point out is, I like to call her, she was a trendy candidate. She was a trendy candidate. Anytime something was trendy that was liberal leaning, she jumped all over it. When Bernie Sanders, which I love Bernie Sanders, and look, I'm not that far apart from the Democratic Party, as I am, to the Republican Party when it comes down to it. I feel like I'm more of a moderate, which I just always call myself an independent, which a lot of people try to not to be it because they don't want to say a specific side that they are standing on in general. But, the things that she stood on 4 years ago, she ran on was, free healthcare. Now, that is a very liberal thing, an extreme liberal thing to do. You might get your party roused up on it and so forth, but to get the country roused up on it, no. But it's not even just the country, because I think the country would love free healthcare across the board for everybody. But when you talk about big pharma and you talk about these drug companies, big pharma, and these insurance companies that's making billions of dollars off of people paying for insurance and things of that nature, she couldn't run on that. It was way too liberal. It was way too left for people to attach to. Not only that, another big thing, and I don't know why people don't mention these things, right? For instance, defund the police. She was a huge fan of defunding the police. Look, I was a part of 2020 and the unwake of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and I led the protests, and we went and burnt down Oakland and San Francisco and Los Angeles, and we broke shit up, and we did all of that and so forth, right? And you had everybody in the liberal party and the Democratic Party saying defund the police. But now when it came to a national stage to say that, that wasn't the popular opinion of America. So there was no way that she could say that because Trump will ultimately use that, against her. So it didn't make sense. So that's another big thing that she ultimately flip-flopped on. So people who were, big Bernie fans and, that were like ultra liberal, they felt like, she alienated them, to try to come a little bit more to the middle as a moderate. And the other huge thing that she flip-flopped on was fracking. She's big on green energy, which I understand, global warming and things of that nature, but everybody doesn't have that same view about how soon we are to the world destroying because of global warming and stuff like that. And, and especially in a state that's a swing state, being Pennsylvania, which their economy relies on fracking. And it wouldn't have won her the state, which it didn't win her the state, even when she said that she was with fracking. So it was a lot of things that held people back from her. They didn't believe her. But I mean, obviously I like to believe, my case, because I kind of been a thorn in her side for the past, 4 to 8 years, just in general. But these other components are huge components. So for instance, the NBJ, the National Black Journalists summit. Her and Trump both got the invite at the exact same time. Now, I'm going to tell you, Kamala was scared to death of Donald Trump. She didn't want to be in no type of room with him where a potential debate could pop off at any time. She didn't want somebody in the middle to be able to ask questions, both sides, compare what she said to what he said, because she wasn't knowledgeable enough about these things. Now, as much as you could demonize Donald Trump and and all of the of its character and the things that he say and so forth, a lot of people identify with the way that he delivers his message. Now, does he have the best characteristics? No, I don't think I don't think he does. I don't think anybody necessarily thinks he does. He's a one of one. He's a one of one. And he's been president before. And, so people could leverage his presidency to like her history and her background and her accomplishments and her follies. Now, when she didn't show up to the NBJ and Trump did, that was a real shot. That was a real shot, because if that email that went out said, hey, we're inviting you to the NBJ and not Trump, she would have been there. But since they both were invited, she's like, oh, we don't want to accept. And if he accepts, then we're both going to be there at the same time. Oh, no, we can't afford get any like him winning whatever that necessarily is. So the NBJ, they knew they up, and they knew that they couldn't tell Donald Trump not to come at that point. But the only thing that they could do to try to remedy the situation was to instantly go in there and attack him. Race politics and go at it exactly like that. Now, that was a huge opportunity for a spotlight to be on her. And it went away. And then she tried to double back and do a private setting, NBJ, with some unknown reporters, journalists that's coming up in the game, and you read it on their face that every question that they asked was literally scripted. So that was a huge blow to her campaign and a huge blow to who she was and her authenticity in general. Now, one other huge thing that hurt her campaign as well, again, not showing up. She didn't show up to the Al Smith dinner. The Al Smith dinner is every 4 years, the presidents go to the Al Smith dinner, they raise money, and they basically roast each other, right? And it showed with her not showing up that she didn't have thick enough skin to take whatever Trump was going to throw at her. Now, mind you, he's not writing these jokes, These are real, joke writers that's writing these jokes. Hillary Clinton showed up, you know what I mean? And Trump got on her, and it was funny. Trump's an entertainer at the end of the day, but she had an opportunity to come and show her character and even get on, even cap on him, some. And she chose not to. And I think that not only looked bad, how everybody looked, like the population looked at it, but also you have these Catholics, they felt, alienated for her not doing so. Another thing, so I'm obviously I'm breaking down all of these things that hurt her campaign and why she only got 68 million votes. Like, come on now. And then the other thing, like, she made it all about everything about race. Now, you make it about race, which your ethnicity is already called into question. your nationality is definitely American. And in America, you are black in general, right? And that's how people perceive it. But then your history, right? And these are the skewed lines. Your history doesn't come from black slavery in America. The concept of black and us being black in America was based off of slavery. If you go to Europe right now, out in Europe, now the trend of being considered black is an American thing. But you go to any other country and you're not black out there. You're African. You're Nigerian. You're Dominican. You know what I mean? So when you're running this race, this identity politics, and this is the main thing, but you have a majority of the world that has always looked at you as Indian American, Asian South Pacific, then now you have a problem. And that erodes in the election as well. And people called her, her authenticity into play. And I think that hurt her not because she was black or not because she was a woman, but they were overselling who she really was. Now, they even sold Oakland, right? Yeah, she was born in Oakland. She lived in Oakland about 7-8 years, whatever it may be, right? But she did middle school and high school in Canada. And then you went to an HBCU, okay, great. But she went to an HBCU for the black experience. That's when you know there's a problem. Now look, black people in America, we don't have to go to an HBCU for the black experience. We are living it. We are going through it every single day. Yeah, she has more of a black boule experience of America, right? Which could be traumatizing, in itself because you are black, regardless. But the experience that, the culture, which she isn't a part of the culture, black American hip hop culture. She tried to be a part of it. And she's trying to be a part of it. And you can see it. She wears it on her face. You see it in her dance. You see it how she talks. You see it how she walks, how she picks her men. You see it. So her running with, identity politics was something that, really hurt her in this country in a time where ain't nobody trying to hear that shit right now. Like, I mean, look, we love to hear it, obviously. I'll be the first to say, yeah, I voted for Trump. And I didn't want to see her in office, right? Because of my traumas when it come down to it. But if she would have won, I would have been happy to see a black woman president, right? And I believe the majority, every black person, every minority would have loved to see that. And since women are falling in the category as minorities now, of course they would have loved it, right? And it would have been dope. I would have just had to suck it up, pause, no diddy, and chuck it out, just in general. But she lost. Now, when we speak about her, her decisions and who she actually is, it's hard to find out who this woman is because she flip-flops so damn much. Like, and, there's a lot of people that shine the light also on her vice president pick, right? When she could have she went with, Tampon Timmy, but she should have, but they say that she should have went with Shapiro, who is Jewish, and to me, he's he's a presidential type of guy, to be honest. He was more presidential than her. Like, if they were going to have a runoff at the DNC, he was going to be up there and he probably would have won. But the thing about it is, the only thing that they would have been able to sell for him, because nobody knew who he was like that, was that he's Jewish. And as you see everything that's going on in Israel right now, you know, he would have been opposed heavily. And, you know, and they didn't want that. They didn't want the light to be shined on the proxy war that we're in Israel and in Ukraine. So what they figured was, okay, look, we can't go that far, but we could go over here and we could still hopefully get the Jewish base, because her husband is Jewish. And then you get the tampon Timmy, because he is very progressive. He is progressive to the point where he wants tampons in male bathrooms, which is crazy. He's okay with, kids, you know what I mean, having sex changes before the age of 10 without telling the parents. Like, of course, he's not gonna vocalize it in that type of manner because it sounds crazy. But if you look in through the laws of things and what they're trying to slide in there, then it will happen. So it was a lot of things that played. Oh, I mean, the list goes on. When she first came out and kicked off her campaign, you bring out Meghan Thee Stallion. Do you know how that made us look? It made us look like, oh, this is what it is, right? I mean, not only like to the world, and to the whole United States. Anybody that's not black or anybody that's not in urban culture, we loved it, you know what I mean? But you turned it into a concert, and you made us look even worse by doing that, because everybody else was like, I knew that this was going to happen if you let her into office. You literally opened the door for them to, classify us as ghetto, unintelligent, and paid for. The Meghan Thee Stallion know about politics? Especially coming from somebody that's from Texas, which is a red state in general. Now, of course, there's some blue down there, especially in Houston, I will hope, and maybe in Dallas. Not Dallas, Houston, yeah, for sure. But, I mean, and people looked at that as pandering, definitively pandering. And it made us look bad. And a lot of people didn't like that. I mean, from the black community, to the Hispanic community, to every other community. And so there's a slew of, reasons why this went bad for her. And again, she didn't do good. She didn't do good at all, but she didn't even get close to where Joe Biden was 4 years ago. Now, the thing about Joe Biden 4 years ago compared to Kamala today, Joe Biden had 4 years in office with Donald Trump, and that's what they sold. Not with Donald Trump, 4 years in office with Barack Obama. So he was instantly connected to black, right? And he was instantly connected. He tried to connect himself to the civil rights movement and everything else that was going on in the 60s. But to be honest, he was racist. He was racist in 95. He wrote the crime bill. He been a racist. You tell me you find a 50-year-old right now and have him change his ideologies from being racist to not racist. How long is it going to take? That shit ain't going to be overnight. But they switch, per politics and be fake or whatever it may be just to get the votes. That's what Bill Clinton did. Barack Obama did the same exact thing with gay marriage. Barack Obama wasn't for gay marriage in his first term, but the strategy of the Democrats is to get every other party but white, and then demonize white as racist and Republican. But what they didn't expect this time around, that with media and how media works, mainstream media isn't number one no more. Yeah, it's mainstream for sure. But is it the number one tool that feeds information to people? No. That's social media. I mean, that's YouTube. And the new generation, like my son's 20, like his political view is totally different than one can imagine. And the Democratic Party are so old, they're outdated. My son is 20. He was going for motherfucking Kanye West. Like, you try to sell Kanye West or Joe Biden. Man, the culture down there gonna go for, for Kanye every time, especially these kids, the under 25s and so forth. The party is just so out of touch. And when I say the party, I mean like on an executive national level, when it comes down to, congressmen, senators, and just the executive branch. Now, locally, oh yeah, I vote Democratic locally, right? I love to get behind me a good, a good progressive when, in San Francisco or in California and things of that nature. I love it, right? But when it comes down to the direction of where the country is going right now, and when you really start taking a look from the other side and listening to the other side, and then look at the liberals and the Democrats, you start seeing how they're selling this fallacy of help and change when people in my community and like motherfuckers in the dirt, like, the poor class, the real poor class, don't know how to access anything that they're saying that they're giving to us. Like, now one thing that people was able to, like the low class of people, poor people, black, white, or peppermint stripe, what they were able to, what stood out heavily to them when they got something was that stimmy check. And it had Donald Trump name on it. Even though I hate that people say people want to vote for Donald Trump because of that stimmy check and he gonna bring it back and shit like that. But that showed you right there that with plain English, you could have got votes. You could have got help. And people started seeing through the bullshit that, the Dems were selling. And they used Kamala to sell it. Another thing that hurt her campaign was Barack Obama and a lot of her other surrogates and left-wing media, which is 90% of the media, CNN, MSNBC, ABC. He went on to call out black men and suggest that we weren't voting for Kamala because she was a woman. Out of every other reason that a black man could feel some type of way by not voting for the Democratic Party in general, you isolate us over here in this corner and say it's us not wanting to vote for her because she's a woman, when it's far from the truth. And then when Obama and the Democrats, when you only pay attention to the black boule and what they're saying, knowing that they're pandering to you anyway, so they could get in good with you. They could take that picture with you. You might get invited to the White House and shit like that. When you're only pandering to them, you'll never know what the motherfuckers below them is saying or going through or doing. And they were so out of touch. They were too out of touch. You know, one thing about Trump, he wasn't out of touch. Trump obviously dealt with the upper echelon, executive, businessmen and stuff like that. He stepped out of that and was like, hold on, what y'all got going on down here? In these rural areas, these po folks. Let me talk like y'all so y'all can understand me more. And that's just what it is. So, you know, I could go on and on about all of the things that hurt her campaign and why she's not into, you know, why she's not the president and not in office. And, you know, and I hope people focus on those things instead of trying to make it seem like it's just because of this one ethnic group or this gender and, you know, and so forth and so on. No, it wasn't because of that. For one, you didn't excite the base enough just pushing identity politics. The other big thing, can't forget this, Roe v. Wade. Like women's rights, they sold it as in if, man, I just seen this girl crying her eyes out. Two things. They sold that make America great again means let's go back to slavery. And that's how people was interpreting it. That's how the Democrats was selling it. When Kamala was saying, we're not going back, she was saying to people, basically, we're not going back to slavery. That's where they're trying to take us. And they use those slogans to make it seem like Trump was trying to take us back to slavery. And it stuck and it hit with, you know, some people, obviously, predominantly in the black community, and they use, you know, our dope celebrities, which I love them all, to try to sell it and send it all the way home, which they knew for sure that that ain't what that means. You know, the slogan, you know, make America great again, I look at that slogan as in make America great to the point where you feel like your life was good. At your most comfortablest spot, financially, mentally, physically, whatever that time is, because everybody has that time to when you felt good about yourself. You felt good about where you was in life and so forth and so on. That's what make America great again is. It's that feeling. But they just sold it, you know, in a way where, you know, people wasn't buying it outside of, you know, people who literally relies on the clips from the Shade Room, the clips from, you know, Hollywood Unlocked, the clips from their, you know, left-leaning celebrities, and so forth and so on. I was talking to a girl the other day, for instance, right? And I told her, I said, you don't remember that clip when Joe Biden told Charlamagne, "You're not black if you don't vote for me." She said, "Nah, I ain't never seen that." I said, "What? You ain't never seen that?" That's because of what they don't want to show you to push you away from this candidate in general. So when we talk about, you know, not sanctioning, but now I can't think of the word right now. But you know, when it comes down to media, like free media, that's a huge thing. When, like, you know what shadow banning is, right? Shadow banning, it, you know, goes against, you know, our First Amendment. When it boils down to it, it's like, yo, we have the right to free media. Now, understandable, if you pushing anything beyond, the age limit or something, super illegal, we have a problem with that. And that's why Elon Musk jumped in and threw his name in a hat on everything too. Because they were trying to, they were trying to block people's opinions, people's narratives, and they call it fake news, where it's like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of fake news out there. Fake news on both sides. But I think the fake news is really coming from, clips that people are, posting and putting it out there how they want to put it out there. Now, Trump did it the most cleverest way ever. For instance, when he dropped the commercial about Kamala Harris wanting to have sex change for prisoners, Charlamagne said it. He said, I don't want my tax dollars going to no sex changes in jail, for people in prison. And he said, hell no, right? Now, so what Trump did was use that clip, those two clips, and put it inside of a commercial and made it seem like Charlamagne was totally against it, which he said he was totally against it, but how they made it seem like if Charlamagne was in agreement with Trump, though in that actual category, he is against it. He doesn't want it happening, which the majority of the world, the United States don't want, our taxpayer money going to, sex changes for people in jail. I mean, like, come on now. So I think to wrap this up and put it in a bow, her whole campaign, her whole strategy was so out of touch. They tried to use, identity politics. Let me get back to this. Identity politics. Roe v. Wade, right? So what they're not going to tell you is that they've been trying to overturn Roe v. Wade for 40 plus years now, right? Roe v. Wade really not only like Republicans, Democrats alike, and scholars alike. The thing about it is they would have needed a president to stand on it. And they didn't have one to stand on it until Donald Trump came. And do you know the reason why it became a huge issue? Is because of our population growth. So economists and scholars 40 years ago predicted and expected the United States to be growing at a 3 million, 4 million people annually in a 20-year span, right? A year. But over the past 20 years, we've only been growing at a 2.1 million clip in general. So we're not growing fast enough that for capitalism to continue to thrive and grow. We live in a capitalist, country, right? It's the law of world that is what keeps order, right? The money is what keeps the order, and that's why capitalism actually works, right? I mean, the other options, there's not options, to be honest. Now, the thing, so when Roe v. Wade being overturned, of course, the Democrats, what they felt like, and Bill Clinton said it the other day, he slipped up and nobody talked about it, but he said it. He said, he said he was talking about Lincoln Riley, who got killed by the illegal immigrant or whatnot, right? And he has said that if our borders were more secured, i.e. borders are Kamala Harris, if they were more secure, then that wouldn't have happened. But if our border was secure and that didn't happen, and America ain't having enough babies, then we won't have the population for our workforce. And there you have it. The direct correlation between immigration and Roe v. Wade. And the arc of it is the population. The arc of it is the economy. The arc of it is capitalism. That's what the whole arc is. Now, if you dive back even more to when Roe v. Wade even had precedent, in general, a lot of it was since, there was no segregation anymore, and that's where it was leaning towards, they were in fear that black people were going to just start having babies, raping people, and doing all of these things. And they wanted to have everybody the opportunity to have an abortion. It wasn't about women's rights at all. But they seen that it didn't work. They seen that white women liked black men, and they was having mixed kids. And black people start messing with Mexicans, and Asian people start messing with Mexicans, and so forth and so on. And we started becoming what, they envisioned. Well, they say they envisioned this United States of America, but what it started doing is watering down their white blood. Now, they try to make that into a Republican thing. But if we dial back to, the 60s and before the 60s, before the end of segregation and so forth, remember, Kennedy was a Democrat. And Kennedy was working with the Republicans, and because black people voted Republican, for one, to end segregation. He was working with Martin Luther King and so forth. Who didn't like that? The Democrats didn't like that, right? And their followers, whatever it may be. And you see what happened. Kennedy got killed, right? And here comes Lyndon B. Johnson, right? Now, the same way immigration, same way economy, same way women's rights are what was on the ticket this election, you had civil rights on the ticket then, right? Ending segregation, right? On the ticket. And the country was up in an uproar. And a lot of people especially the Republicans, they wanted to end segregation. But since it was a Democrat that was in office, they had to play strategy. And they played strategy. And when it came across Lyndon B. Johnson table, he signed off on it, right? But really, only 30% of Democrats voted to end segregation. And 90% of Republicans voted to end segregation. But that's when the Democratic strategy started. And that's also when the big switch started, which makes no sense to me at all, right? Was what Lyndon B. Johnson was quoted to have said, because everybody have iPhones and mics and shit like that. But what he said lived on since he said it. He said, since these niggers are voting Democratic, I'll have them voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Lyndon B. Johnson said that. A Democrat said that. And that's when a strategy was born. You get the black vote, you move on, you get the woman's vote, you move on, you get every other ethnic group vote, and keep on tallying it up, and then blame the white people. Which they are the white people as well. But we're the good ones. We're the ones that try to help you out. Hey, here go, government assistance. Which, to be honest, that hurt my family more than it helped my family. Because you didn't get access to it like that unless you were a single mother. I don't know not a single father out there that was on government assistance, taking care of their kids and so forth and so on. But it was an scapegoat for a woman to ultimately leave a man. Specifically in our broke community, which was the project community, the hood community, the black community. And it worked. And it worked. And all the other things since then that happened drastically and negatively with the black community all came from the Democrats. When it come down to it, the next big thing was the crime bill. Crime Bill Joe. which Bill Clinton administered, put it into law, which I think I mentioned this last time, is 357 pages of government grants just to lock niggas up. Literally. And from 1995 to 2005, that changed, that doubled the prison population and increased the black population in prison by 17%. Now, fast forward to another reason why Kamala, lost. Again, she oversold Roe v. Wade as in if they were going to put Roe v. Wade back into play, which is not going to happen. And to be honest, look, I'm definitely pro-choice, but I also understand what pro-life is as well. That's way above my pay grade if it should be on a national level or if it should be on a state, on a federal level, or should it be on a state level. Way past my pay grade. But I do understand why they put it up to the states because of the population issue that they're having and that we're having in the United States. Now, the Republicans, they look at it like, look, if what they're selling, like, again, back channels, Democrats, Republicans, and scholars alike, there's no way that Roe v. Wade gets overturned without a massive agreement that's happening behind that curtain, right? It's not just on Donald Trump, but Donald Trump done explained it numerous of times. But what they're not going to show you in left-wing media is him explaining it and breaking it down. And then instantly they just call him a liar off of everything. When he came up with the Platinum Plan 4 years ago, $500 billion plan contract for African Americans, for black people, they said he ain't gonna do it. It's a lie. And so forth. And he didn't win, so he wasn't able to, administrate it. But there's not a single thing that the Democrats have said that they're gonna do specifically for black people. Now, Kamala came up with this concept of a plan which fit her plan anyway. She just put black man on it when it comes down to, helping black men get access to capital and entrepreneurship and stuff like that. And they sold it as if it was specifically for black people, but it wasn't specifically for black people. It was for everybody. But they only did that because they see that they was losing some numbers. But back to the Roe v. Wade thing. So Republicans on the front look at it like, look, if we put it back up to the states, some states are going to vote to not to fully ban abortions, but to have a time constraint on it, whatever it may be. I done heard 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, whatever it may be. I'm not in those states. I don't know. But I know that there's like 20 states out there that has, illegalized abortion up until a certain age, or a certain part of the marriage or whatnot. And they feel like if the population will ultimately grow in those states, right? And that will help with, the population of the United States in general. But the Democrats, they're like, no, let's double down on this because, again, they won't tell you, but they was with ending Roe v. Wade as well, right? Their solution was, let's keep the borders open, let illegal immigrants come in regardless of where they're from. It's not just a Mexican thing, right? It's a global thing because it's people from everywhere that's ultimately trying to come inside the United States. And the easiest way to get in through this motherfucker is the actual border. And these past 4 years showed it. And they look at it like what Bill Clinton said. You know, if the borders, was closed down, then we wouldn't have, and Americans ain't having enough babies for the workforce. That spoke directly to capitalism. That spoke directly to having enough people to work these low-end jobs. And that was, but the way that they sold it was so fake. The way that they sold, the way that they sold Roe v. Wade, it didn't feel authentic. Now, of course, a lot of people, I look at it like this. You have 45% of the country that's going to vote Democratic no matter what. You got 45% of the country that's going to vote Republican no matter what. Then you have this block of 10%, and they are, independents, let's call them, right? But then you also have this whole huge other massive block of people who don't give a f, and they're not going out to vote. And that block is bigger than the blocks of the people that's actually voting. I mean, we can look at the numbers. I believe last time I checked, America has 350 million people in it or something like that, whatever it may be. It was I think 74 million odd people voted for Donald Trump, and 64 or 60 something million voted for Kamala Harris, which Joe Biden outperformed her 4 years ago by a good 15 million people. So, because look, this is the thing. 4 years ago, remember, we had a crisis going on with COVID-19, and then a pandemic, and then everybody stayed inside the house, right? And what, the left-wing media did was shine a light on propaganda, right? When it comes down to, George Floyd, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor more so. Sandra Bland had happened a little before or whatnot. So the media took that as a way to push it out there, talk about it on every platform to rile people up to ultimately get out and protest, which I did, and I played a part in it and everything, right? And all they did was blame it on Donald Trump. But literally, from my experience, I'm not giving up no names, but I talked to politicians and people in office before we went and shut down the Bay Bridge and did a huge protest and stuff like that. Are we going to be charged for it? And things of that nature. And I was told, no, go ahead and do it. And we did it. And none of us got charged for it. We were arrested, but all charges were dropped. And that trend was going on throughout the whole United States, especially in Democratic states, aka Democratic cities. And they let it happen. Now, of course, some people did go to jail. Some people was arrested, so forth and so on. But the majority of people didn't. And what the f we was doing? We was tagging up buildings, breaking. We were protesting. We were out. We wanted our rights. We wanted to defund the police. We wanted to do all of these things, right? And Kamala Harris was right there saying, I feel you. Go out there and do it. Tim Walz, go out there and do it. I get it. You know what I mean? And all they did, their whole strategy was to blame it on Trump, blame it on racism, blame it on all of these things. And they used that as a way for the campaign of Joe Biden. And then, of course, him being, Obama's, old vice president. That's what won him the election. But they didn't have that for Kamala this time around. They didn't have that for Kamala this time around. And we see it. We see the results of it. Now, another big thing that, in the ninth inning, coming home, what their campaign did that fucked everything up. They were trying to ploy so hard and pander so hard to the black community, which they use the black community to influence the Hispanic community and every other communities, because we create 95% of the culture globally in general. And that's why they always pander to us. And that's why they pander to the celebrities. And when they brought out Cardi B, and now mind you, just about a year ago, Cardi B and a lot of these celebrities, when Joe Biden still had his name up for the candidate, people were not feeling Joe Biden at all. And everybody was questioning Kamala Harris. Like, where you been these past couple of years? Nah, we not fucking with y'all. Like, nah, we not doing it. And Cardi B was one of those ones. Yep, but they ended up, at the last inning, last minute stretch, went ahead and pulled out every card that they can. And when they pulled her out, she shot a blank. And to a degree, I feel like they did it on purpose. And they made her look bad. And I love Cardi. The culture loves Cardi. But she looked so bad up there. She wasn't herself. She didn't deliver, which the stuff that she ended up reading on her phone, that was shit that she could have just said off the top of her head. So that's how you knew she wasn't even into it. She was doing it for the bag. I know people, and I've heard from people about, certain celebrities and stuff like that getting paid to come in, pledge their alliance to the Democratic Party. Now, one person who let everybody know he was offered $3 million to perform, okay, so 50 Cent was offered $3 million to come perform at Trump's rally in New York City. Now, $3 million as an artist to perform, yeah, now that makes sense, right? If a person's going to perform. But they're also paying people for speeches. They're paying people to come in a line. Look at Michelle Obama. When she goes and does any speeches or anything like that, she's getting paid $750,000, $800,000. So when a celebrity of some sort comes and they're not just doing it for free because it's out the goodwill of their heart. No, they're getting paid for it. And you see at the last minute, in the ninth inning, they try to pull out every stop that they can. Remember, they sold Beyonce at that first big rally. I think it was in Texas or something like that. Like she was going to be there. She was going to perform and all of that stuff. And she ended up being a no-show. We got to beg the question, like, why? Why it took you so long to come in on the back end? You had to get everything right. You had to get the business right. I mean, you see, Beyonce didn't perform. She went out there and gave a speech. I loved her speech. And everybody else that came out there, and gave that came and spoke from Hollywood. There's so many names. I don't even want to go down the line. But them using the strategy of celebrity endorsements, it ultimately backfired on them. And the crucial evidence of that was the Cardi B's debacle of a speech, which just made us look horrible. It made the Democratic Party look horrible, which ultimately fell in the lap of Kamala Harris. And it's just, and it was sad to see, man. I mean, I laughed at it, but it was still bad to see, man. I didn't want to see that. And another thing they didn't do, I didn't see like no strong black woman that is popular that we know that isn't like a super celebrity go out there and actually speak and push family and all of these things. Everything that they pushed was divide, divide, divide. And people weren't buying it, man.
How you feel about the backlash she got for not speaking at Howard after losing?
Um, I think it made her look soft. It made her look bitter. Like, yo, you have, you're basically what is going to be your celebration if you win by the end of the night, or if it's super close, you're supposed to come out and come and speak to, the Divine Nine. And I know a lot of people that go to HBCUs, and they all flooded in to Howard to watch this speech in hopes that she won, obviously, but definitely wanted to see her. And I think it made her look weak. I think people were very upset about it. Again, I didn't even like it. And, I feel bad for our community. That had nothing to do with us when it comes down to these these politicians and politics. I've never seen us this far divided, in any election. And I mean, I go back all the way to, Bush Sr., though I wasn't, fully engulfed into politics at that time. But I remember my parents talking about politics. Most people that's going out to vote right now, or even, if they're in their 30s, or even, mostly in their 20s or whatever it may be, as far as back they could go to the president that they remember is Barack Obama. They don't even know Bill Clinton like that. You don't even hear George Bush names get mentioned at all. But remember, they demonized George Bush too as a racist. They ran race politics even with him every single time. And that is the Democratic way, especially now, after Barack Obama. It's all about gender. It's all about race. And that's all they could sell. And that's why they ultimately lost. But yeah, I think her not coming to speak at Howard that day, I felt sorry for everybody who had went, and knowing that the next day, because she had already lost, that they had to go there, and I know a ton of people who didn't go to see her give this speech and ultimately concede to who they just demonized and called Hitler. Look what they did in this towards the end of this race. They literally called all of Trump supporters Nazis, and they called Donald Trump Hitler. They called him a fascist. They called him all of these things and said that he is these things. Or they used proxies that went out there and said this. And what they did was echo what they had said. And most of them were people that, Donald Trump either, fell out with or fired in general. And now you have to concede. You have to call him, and you told everybody the next day at Howard, after you called him a Nazi and Hitler, said that you called Donald Trump and congratulated him. So basically, in theory, you called Hitler and congratulated him? Come on, man. Make it make sense. So, again, I didn't like it. I think she could have came out and at least minimum lifted the spirits, told people it wasn't over yet. We still got a lot of things to count. Thank you for coming out. I'll see you guys again tomorrow, either win, lose, or draw. But she didn't do that. And now she will dwindle away into the abyss as the worst presidential candidate. And I feel so bad for our people, black people, and I feel bad for, for women, to be honest, because for her to do that bad, and then also, it just, damn, man, the two people that Trump went up against were women, and he knocked them both down. Well, I mean, and he lost to, of course, Biden, but I think any Republican would have lost to them. But yeah, man, it's been a crazy past 3 months, man, in these politics, and I just hope that our people give it some time, show grace to each other, start having discussions. Don't try to alienate people's ideas and positions and how they look at things. And it's a lot of conversations that we need to have. And when it pertains to me, a big reason why I threw my support, behind Trump, a huge reason was, of course, with my attachment to Kamala Harris. And then also what made me double down on it is just me learning and seeing so much that the Democratic Party done hid from us, or obscured from us, or sold to us, these fallacies, man. And, and that's what it came down to. But I love my people, and I hope everybody, heals over these next, couple of months and into when Donald J. Trump takes office.
Before we get off of Kamala, any last words you want to say to her?
Yeah. When I think about this whole presidential cycle and how it rolled out this year, I see where the country is going in the next 4 years and what the Democratic Party needs to do. I've seen Vivek Ramaswamy turn into a star on the Republican side. I've seen Brian Donald turn into a star on the Republican side. I see their strategies and being attached to, influencers, men, masculinity, in America in general. And I know if the Democrats, they don't have not one star. I feel like what the Democrats need to do, and it's the only way, what they do, they need to find the perfect celebrity that everybody knows and start prepping that person over these next 4 years to ultimately run. And they need to be able to get the correct message across to middle America, minorities in a respectable way, and country values, and stop trying to sell race. And if they keep that up and keep that going, then after Trump, I see the Republican Party being in office for at least 12 years.